Welcome back to Submarine Live. We have been linking up to the Nekton First Descent mission through submarine Q&As and also looking at some of the STEM topics behind submersible exploration with these live investigations. So today's live investigation is about submarine pressure. So how do we make sure that we don't get crushed when we go deep into the ocean? So we'll be talking about submarine pressure and investigating some of the materials that we could use to build our submarine out of. Now, Submarine Live is part of ACTA XL Oceans Education, and we've been broadcasting from Sonodyne HQ, home of some amazing marine engineering here in the UK. Just before we start, just to give a shout out, a big shout out to all of Year 5 at Door Primary School, who would like to say a huge thank you. Well, it's been fabulous having you with us too. Really wonderful. So a big wave to all of you at Door Primary. And apparently Miss Davidson now has a class full of inspired and enthusiastic engineers and scientists, and we very much look forward to having you on one of our expeditions in the future. So keep on with that amazing inspiration and passion for exploring our world. Now, just to give a brief introduction, the Nekton First Descent team are currently out in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and they're using new technologies to explore deeper into that region than people have ever gone before. That's why it's called First Descent. And two of those technologies are using submersibles, and the difference between a submersible and a submarine, technical difference, is that a submarine can operate independently, but a submersible needs the support of a surface ship, a mothership, and so the submersibles on the Nekton First Descent mission go down for between sort of 2, 3, 4 hours to explore the depth down to 250 meters, and then come up onto the surface vessel and then are recharged and repaired and everything else when they are up there. We're going to look today at the issue of pressure. So it's a really interesting concept. So we'll talk a little bit about pressure and why it's a big factor in exploring the deep ocean. Then we'll do a little investigation to see how that pressure might influence how we design submersibles. And then at the end, we'll have a chance to answer some of those questions you send through. And that's either using the live chat, and we'll also look at some of those questions that have been submitted in advance as well. Do please send through some pictures as you follow this live investigation. Twitter handle is @EncounterEDU, and hashtag is #SubmarineLive. So look forward to seeing how you get on in the classroom as you work through this as well. Now, pressure is a type of force, and so we have at the moment where you are, where I am, we have 1 atmosphere of pressure. So that's all the air sort of essentially weighing down on us. So we've got that 1 atmosphere, and that describes all that atmosphere above us, all that air above us weighing down. We don't really feel it because we're used to it. As we go down into the ocean, we then got that water above us. And water is much denser than air, so it's got more pressure coming down on us. So if we go down just 10 meters into the ocean, that 10 meters of water is equivalent to the whole atmosphere. So we go down to 10 meters below the surface of the ocean, and we've got 2 atmospheres of pressure, or 2 bar. And that's the same for every 10 meters we go down. It's another atmosphere of pressure. And if you go down into the deepest part of the ocean, now that's the Challenger Deep in the Marianas Trench, that's nearly 11,000 meters down. So we've got nearly 1,100 times the pressure that we feel at sea level. And if you want to know kind of what that feels like, okay, I want all of you imagine the Eiffel Tower. So imagine the Eiffel Tower. So imagining that over here. And then I want to imagine you taking off a shoe and a sock. Don't do that. Just imagine doing it. And then take the Eiffel Tower and get the point of the Eiffel Tower and place that on your big toe. And that's the kind of pressure that you would experience were you 11,000 meters under the sea. There is a little demonstration that you can do looking at pressure in the underwater world, and we can post that from our activities, and it involves using, it's called under pressure. We'll post that in the live chat. So one to try either in the classroom later or at home. All you need is some parental supervision or some teacher supervision, a bottle like this, some water, and something to make holes in the bottle, and a bit of tape as well. So, on to our live investigation. So obviously with all this pressure, we need to think about what the best material for the submersibles are. And I think we can get a picture of one of the submersibles up on screen at the moment. So really what we're thinking is we've got that pressure hull there, so that see-through shape, almost like a goldfish bowl, and that's keeping our scientists safe. Now that's just not any goldfish bowl, that's a specially designed acrylic pressure hull, so it's made out of acrylic, a type of plastic, and it is also it is 8 centimeters thick, so 80 millimeters, 8 centimeters thick. And so designed to protect the scientists as they go under and explore the underwater world. Now, if we just come back to the studio, I'm trying to make a little scientist here. I'm very bad at making little scientists. It's got a very big head and very funny legs. I'm going to give him some arms as well. Now, so our job, and you can use a P if you want to. I think that's what we've described in some of the guidance. But seeing as I've got some modeling clay left over from previous activities and investigations we've been doing, that really doesn't look like an arm. I'm absolutely a little bit embarrassed to show you this. I'm going to put that arm on this side. Does that look like a scientist? Ish. Okay. So we put our scientist down on our testing table, and we'll go through some of the, there we go. We'll go through some of the things that you need for this submarine pressure live investigation. So you're going to need some submarine pressure hulls. I have here a plastic cup. So we're going to see whether this is any good. That's all flown down into my testing pool down below the table here. We've got a paper cup. I am, because I'm really interested by this, please do not do this in your school or at home, but I'm going to test a glass cup as well. If you're at school, please just consider using plastic or paper, stuff that if it does break isn't going to cause injury. So that's really, really important. So we're going to be testing these under pressure, so there might be some breakages. So please do not use this. But this has got a really interesting link to submarine exploration, which is why I want to show it to you today. So I'm just going to reach down and get this plastic cup back. What we're going to do is we're going to place our different pressure hulls over our scientist, and we're going to see if we add more depth of water, how is this going to behave? So we've got a variety of tests. We can also make predictions. So testing and predictions, really, really important for science. So maybe out of these three objects, paper, plastic, or glass, which one of these things might we predict is going to work best under pressure, under the weight of all that water? And the way I'm going to add the water, so I'll just show you here. I'm going to put the paper cup over our scientist, and I'm going to put this bottle on top, and I'm just going to gradually fill up this water bottle with more and more depth, and that's going to represent the increasing depth of the ocean. We're going to see how deep we can get some of our cups and how good they might be. So let's see if you've got all that set up. So you're selecting your 3 cups. You've got your rig set up. I'm actually using a stand and some clamps because I think it's a really good idea if you do have that equipment in school to get familiar with using scientific equipment. It's a really good opportunity. If you don't, you can just hold it, balance it with your hands. So that's a choice. And we'll go through some important pieces as well. So super safe here. Make sure you're working in the middle of a table so nothing's going to sort of fall off the side. If there are any spills, do make sure you get an adult just to help you clear those up as well. So the way we're going to do this is I have here a measuring cylinder of water so I can start to think how much water I'm going to put into my bottle. So this has got a measuring down the side. You can also use the levels. You can see the levels here on the bottles. You can see the levels to measure the different amounts. So it's the same, because make sure if we're doing a fair test, we've got to do the same levels for each cup. So here we are. I'm going to put some water in here. I'm going to do it up to the first level first. And what we're going to see yep. Tried too fast there. Okay, so that's one full of these. Take that up here. And C, okay, what we don't want to do is squash our little scientist. So our little scientist very happy under there. Are we going to squash our scientist? I'm going to balance. Our scientist is safe. Okay. Going to try my second on the glass. Is glass going to be the right material to build our pressure hull out of and keep our scientists safe? Yeah. So I wonder whether this is what you thought might happen. Then we've got plastic. So it looks like glass, plastic, and paper have survived our first level. I think we need to go deeper, so I'm going to fill up to this level here. Got some more water here. And we'll see how this increases. I would like to be standing up doing this, but I think that's going to take me out of camera shot. Oh, there we are. Do that up. And also, which I forgot to mention, remembering to put the top back on, so if it does slip or fall, I'm not going to put water everywhere. So we'll do that in the same order again. Paper cup over a little scientist. Depth of water. That's pretty good. Glass. I'm a bit worried if this breaks, I've got to be super careful here. Glass is okay. I wonder if this is behaving like you predicted it would. So take the glass pressure hull off. And plastic. Okay. Okay, so far so good. I wonder if all of these are going to be as good as each other. One more level to go up. I've got that final more depth in the ocean to go down. So, as we're doing before, okay, paper. How much depth can the paper handle? It's a bit nervy here. Glass, got to be super careful here. Glass is still going strong, so that's good. And then we've got the plastic here. Plastic is still okay. Yeah, still okay. Ha! This is amazing. So you've got 3 choices still. Let's see. One will go with the rest of the water. So going even further down, almost pretending we're going down to full ocean depth. And let's see what we've got here. Put that on the side there. Ooh, I'll pick that up in a bit. Remember, put the top back on here. Coming down. So here we have perfectly balanced. We've got the paper as well. And I'm just going to explore another property of the paper just in a bit. We have the glass, which I'm super worried about. But the really nice thing, I'm just going to pick up the one from here. The super nice thing about the glass is you can see out. The paper was a bit boring. Okay, but the glass is still going strong, which is amazing because you think that glass is more fragile. And we can also see the importance of the shape of the object as well. And we've just got this one here. And hope that our little scientist stays safe. Okay. So I've got a little bit of a break here, and I think if I pressed even further down, let's just see with this one. Yeah, I would not like to be a scientist in that one. So we've got, at the bottom of our ocean, we've seen that whilst we've managed to keep our scientists vaguely safe, I wouldn't want to sort of go any deeper in our plastic cup. We have, our glass has worked surprisingly well, and we've had a paper, which is a great substance, but what we see is you can't see out. So when we're looking at, I'm just going to move this away, when we're looking at the different materials, what we can see is, in fact, with the plastic under pressure, we've got a little bit of a kink there. And depending on what kind of plastic you use, if you're using even thinner plastic, you're going to get that bend there. So we don't want thin plastic, and I think the thicker plastic we have is going to be good. So we've got the pressure holes on the submersibles, which are 8 centimeters thick. Glass is an amazing material, and as long as you've got a really regular shape, it is going to be able to withstand a lot of pressure. And looking at the shape that they're going to be using, or looking to use, for full ocean depth down to 11,000 meters, glass is in fact probably going to be stronger than plastic, but you want it completely spherical, and any deformities in the glass will just cause it to shatter immediately. Now, like our paper cup, there are a lot of other materials you could use. One of the problems of using paper or metal or other types of material is that you can't see out. So if I'm in a submersible and I'm looking at the underwater world like this, it is not very satisfying. So when we look at submersible design, it's the ability to choose a clear, transparent material so that the scientists can see the underwater world, probably better than through the bottom of a plastic cup. They can see the underwater world, and as well as staying safe. So our scientist has stayed safe, if not a little scared under our plastic. Very, very happy under glass, and pretty happy, but can't really see anything, so a little bit bored as well under paper. So I wonder what cups you chose and how they survived under pressure. Be great to find out. Please do share online. But coming through, we have questions from Door Primary. We have, why is there water pressure and what causes it? Really, really great question. And I think we've sort of shown some of the reasons behind water pressure. It's just simply the height of the water above you, just like the height of the air. Or if you were to, what could you do? I mean, what you could try is if at home you could lie on the floor and have somebody place pillows or cushions on top of you, and each pillow or cushion on top of you, you'd probably feel more pressure. So it's simply the height or the number of cushions on top that cause that extra pressure. So that all these things, when we have more of that above us, of a substance, it's going to cause more pressure. Door Primary, has a submarine ever been destroyed by the pressure or damaged? Really great question. I mean, I think there's probably several examples from the military use of submersibles that where this has happened. But in terms of looking at damage, I think my favourite story is from the first descent of into the bottom of the ocean. That's with the Trieste as part of Project Nekton in 1960. And Don Walsh recalls, who's one of the pilots, Don Walsh recalls they had a leak as they were going down. And as that leak, well, if we go even deeper, that the pressure, extra pressure, will actually squeeze where that leak is shut. So you don't get a sort of you get what's called implosion. So you get squashed by that pressure. And in fact, in 2014, we had the Nereus ROV, so robotic submersible, going down to depths of 10,000 meters, imploded at those depths. So certainly water pressure is a big issue, and with the submersibles being used by Nekton First Descent, they are tested, and they are pressure rated to a certain depth, and you do not go beneath that depth. So these submersibles on the expedition are pressure tested down to 1,000 feet. That's about 305 meters. And they only operate down to 250 meters at the moment to give them that extra safety sort of margin as they're exploring the deep. How can something withstand so much pressure? And that's from Door Primary. And it's a really good question. We've looked, and it comes down to material properties of the different items we put down. Of course, the forces are pushing in. So if you have a solid object, then that is more likely to be able to withstand the pressure. If you have a hollow object, like a submarine, then that pushing in is pushing in on air. So if I put pressure on the side here, that's coming in. If I've got a squishy object, it really depends on the properties of the materials. If you went down to 10,000 meters, it might go a bit like that. Lucky this is modeling clay. So it really depends on the properties of the material that you have. Another question from Door Primary: when you jump into the water and it sometimes hurts, is that because of water pressure? That's just really hitting a surface. So because you're at the surface of the water, so you don't have the water pressure because you're not underneath it. But that is really hitting a surface, and depending on the speed you are going, that depends on how the surface of the water feels to you. So if you're going very fast, you will find out that it almost feels like the surface of the water feels a bit more like a solid going at those speeds, and that's why it hurts, because you're not going through the water. You're hitting the surface, and that feels like you're being smacked sometimes. But we can come on to all questions of things like surface tension a bit later, but it's not a pressure issue. Have you ever been in a submersible or scuba dive? I have scuba dived and been on submersible expeditions. It is an amazing experience to explore the underwater world. I think the first time I scuba dived was on the Great Barrier Reef off the eastern coast of Australia, and it was like another world. It was like being in a Disney cartoon. The colours, the movements, and the different forms of life, the sharks, the turtles, the parrotfish, the Christmas tree worms, simply amazing, otherworldly. And then with submersible exploration, it's a different kind of world. So you have these very calm descent into the sort of darkening blues of the deep ocean, and also different sort of forms of life down there, so different types of sponges and corals and algae and fish. I think we've got some footage of a sunfish that the team in the Indian Ocean have seen in recent weeks. Huge fish, nearly as big as the pressure hull on one of the submersibles, and a really amazing opportunity to see some of this beautiful life in the deep ocean. Emma from Acton would like to know, what are the main challenges involved in exploring the deep sea? Emma, that's a great question. I think, what are the main challenges? You're dealing with pressure, you're dealing with, salt water, you're dealing with a very inhospitable environment. We're not designed to be down there. There are animals who have adapted to live in these depths. And it's truly exciting to take people down there. It is really, how can you survive that pressure? I think that, and also how can you operate all the equipment? It's really, for me, it's the amount of engineering and STEM skills that go into it is huge. And I would love to see this type of submersible with that clear pressure hull used more and more, and be able to go deeper and deeper, so that we can see and experience more of our amazing planet, because the ocean is completely, not completely, but is relatively unexplored compared to our land. So Peter in Dagenham would like to know, hi Peter, would like to know, are there dangers to humans when exploring deep water under great pressure? Great question, Peter. Yes, there are, if you are not inside a pressure hull. So if you're in a submersible and you close the hatch and you do it up, then you are maintaining constant pressure inside the submersible, and it's the pressure hull that is taking that extra pressure. If you're just diving, so using an aqualung, using scuba gear, then you are going to be experiencing the pressure on your body. So yes, there are dangers, and you have to be very careful. You have to be very, physically fit and well trained to dive deep into the ocean, and coming up again. So if you, the gas which is dissolved in your blood to take the oxygen to your cells, there is a possibility that if you go up too fast, then that gas might come out of being dissolved in your blood, and of course massive issues and dangers if that were to occur. Daniela from Stevenage, do scientists require physical training to explore the deep sea under pressure? Great question, Daniela. Thank you for that. Just going back to my previous point there is if you are diving, then you don't need that physical, you do need the physical training. If you are on a submersible, then not so much, because you are being protected by the pressure hull. So it really depends how you are exploring the deep ocean, but really good question, thank you. Anthony from Leighton Buzzard, what features of the submarine are specific to withstanding great pressure? Anthony, really good question. So what we're looking at is all parts of the submersible need to be able to withstand the pressure. There's no point in one part being good down at 250 meters and everything else falling apart. So it all needs to be tested as a complete system. Specifically for pilot and scientist safety, I suppose you could say that the pressure hull is the most integral part of that. So that's one of the most difficult engineering challenges to get right, is the pressure hull, so that people can go down to these depths. We have adaptations. What adaptations do animals have which enable them to live under great pressure? And that's from Marnie in High Wycombe. Really good question. So, there are a number of adaptations that deep ocean animals have, and some of them are involved in essentially not having too much air inside you, having smaller swim bladders, not having, and being quite sort of jelly-like in some ways, not too many things that can get squished. So if you're mainly water and a little bit of tissue down at depth, then the water pressure inside you is the same as the water around you, and so that's not going to cause too much issue. Having a small swim bladder also means that there's not too big an air pocket inside you and subject to pressure. We were hearing this morning also about a type of shark called the 6-gill shark that has an extra gill. Most sharks have 5 gills, has an extra gill to get increased sort of oxygen from the water living at depth. So a variety of adaptations there. I think interestingly, you have the blobfish. And do search for the blobfish online at the end of the session. You have the blobfish, and that was named the ugliest animal on the planet in a survey a number of years ago. Down at depth, it doesn't look too bad. It's only when you bring it up and you realize that it sort of droops because it's underneath so much pressure at depth that it's got its sort of ugly name. And I think that's unfair, because if you took us down to the depths it looked at, we would look pretty odd too. Ben from St Winifred's would like to know, do your ears pop when you go down in a submarine like when you go on a plane? Ben, that's a great question. No, your ears do not pop. I mean, there might be a slight pop, but it's got that sort of sealed pressure hole. So the pressure is basically constant, so you don't really have that ear popping issue, and definitely not the ear popping issue and having to sort of adjust your nose like that you might have in scuba diving as well, where you're trying to equalize the pressure inside your head. James from St Winifred's would like to know what would happen to a human if they were outside the submersible regarding the pressure. I sort of squashed our little scientist here. Yeah, I mean, depending on what depth you're going down to, but if you're going down beneath about 30 meters, then without proper equipment, then you're going to get into trouble. So the reason why we use submersibles is to keep people safe and be able to operate at depth, and that's really it. If you're outside the submersible, then there's going to be quite a lot of trouble happening for you, and not good stuff. We have from Oliver at St Winifred's, how do scientists test deep pressure conditions when they are located on the surface? Oliver, that's a great question. So, just in a room over that way, there's a special tank, and you can put equipment into it. You can seal it all up, and then you can start increasing the pressure, and you can simulate at depth. So if I know the force of all the water, and I put this on top of the cup like this, I can put that on top of the cup, and I can see, okay, I know that the pressure is 1,000 meters is equal to 100 bar or so, and I can artificially do that. I can say, let's do 100 bar on this plastic cup and see what happens. I go, well, that's not going to work. So you can do these artificial tests where we can add pressure up here at the surface and simulate what happens at depth. Clive from St Winifred's, hi Clive. Is the pressure in the deep sea similar to what you'd experience in space? And Clive, no, that is not the case. So we have microgravities in space, so we have much less force acting on objects, hence all the floating around. Underwater is experiencing great pressure. Alison from St Winifred's, great questions coming through. Keep on going, guys. How do scientists take samples in the submersible, and where do they keep them? I think we've got some footage of the scientists operating the submersible on a wall in the deep ocean. And what you can see here is you might be able to see the grabber at the front, so it's like a robotic arm that can go out and pick small samples from the seafloor, and then there's a collection box, a sample box, strapped to the front of the submersible as well. And so the scientists or pilots will take a sample, put it into the sample box, and then bring it back to the surface. Lisa from St Winifred's, if the submarine goes too deep, can it start coming apart? It is likely to start coming apart and implode. So that is obviously something we don't want to happen, and the pilots are very, very experienced, and they have a safety margin of 55 meters, and probably the submersible might be even safe below that for a little bit more. But the safety margins are hugely important, and safety is the #1 priority on an expedition like this. So touch wood, these are things we never have to discover. Charlotte from St Winifred's, is water pressure the same as upthrust? They are both forces, Charlotte, so they're slightly different. Water pressure is due to the volume of water above an object and the downward force that is causing. And with upthrust, that is due to the amount of water that an object is displacing. That's a force pushing up. Does the water pressure affect the speed submersibles can go at? Really good question. The speed that submersibles can go at will be really sort of dependent on a couple of things. So you're looking at drag there, or friction forces. So you've got a force pushing you forward with your propellers, and then the drag of moving through the water. So depending, the faster you go, the more drag there is. So it's not really the pressure that's affecting that, but it's a friction force and sort of air resistance, water resistance, those types of forces. So the submersibles being used on the Nekton expedition don't really want to go too fast. So they're going at a slow walking speed when they are doing their transects, when they're looking at what's on the seafloor, because you don't want to miss anything and you want your video to be in nice high resolution. And also, I think the top speed is a fast walking pace. So these are not speedy submersibles. They're designed for scientific research. But the pressure does not have an impact on the speed at which they are going. Where are we? Nick at St Winifred's, watch this mission trying to discover, and have any new discoveries been made? Nick, that's a great question. It's really exploring the deep ocean. It's called Nekton First Descent because they're going down to these places that nobody has ever been before. And have any new discoveries been made? Not yet. And the process of discovery, it's not that you go down on a submersible and you pick something up, or you see something and go, wow, that's a new species. So you're collecting all these different samples, getting them back on for some initial storage and analysis on the surface vessel. But the process of whether these are new species to science, that can take many months back in the laboratory, comparing it to other samples, comparing it to pictures online, maybe doing some DNA analysis, and only then being able to say, this is a new discovery, this is a new species to science. But really, really good question. I think we've got time for one more question, and it's from Viv at St Winifred's. How do you become a submersible pilot? Viv, that's an excellent, excellent question. The submersible pilots, Randy and Robert and others on this expedition, a lot of background in engineering, electrical engineering. You have to be able to keep these subs going, keep them working, be able to problem solve underwater, and a nice sort of curious mathematical brain. Probably also a love of the ocean. Speaking to Robert earlier this week, he described how he got into scuba diving, and that led him on this long journey to becoming a submersible pilot. So a good old long journey there, but definitely some STEM skills involved as well. Thank you all so much. We've just run out of time again. It's been great to have all your questions. Thank you so, so much. Thank you for being part of Submarine Live. It's really special being able to share both the STEM through these live investigations and having the Q&A with the team in the Indian Ocean. If you have enjoyed Submarine Live, do tune in for Arctic Live, where we'll be broadcasting from the northernmost permanent settlement in the world from the 1st to the 8th of May. You can book online for free at encounteredu.com/live. But thank you so much for being part of this live investigation. We've got just 2 more sessions coming up on Submarine Live this week. But until we connect for the next time, it's goodbye. Bye-bye.